Yeah, regarding the dodges Edge of War, I think Bloodhound Step and Quick Step are fine if they remove the instant recovery that you get. I think the Raptors of the Mist is more of an issue. Thankfully, not many people use it.
Yeah, it does seem to be the recovery cancel that's the problem.
Are you talking about Raptors? You think Raptors isn't okay?
Raptors is a problem, not as much, but it still is a problem.
You know, it's not so much Raptors that's the problem, because getting past Raptor of the Mist is kind of like getting past parry spam. If you know somebody's going to Raptor, you just charge up a heavy and let it go after the Raptors fires off, because then they're not going to get the jump and they'll get hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
it's much more manageable and dealable with.
Yeah, Raptors, I think, in and of itself is probably okay. I mean, maybe they should decrease the time that it lets you jump. You know what I'm trying to say. It's hard to describe. But you can hit somebody pretty late when they're in their Raptors animation and they'll still get the jump. That's the only issue, I think, that should be changed with it. But the inherent problem with Raptors, and a lot of people don't want to talk about this because they fucking love spamming jump attack. People love these fucking jump attacks. The problem with jump attacks and Raptors as a whole is that your lower body is invincible when you jump. So no matter what, most weapons in the game are not going to be able to hit somebody that's in a jump because there's just not a lot of vertical attacks in the game. You can hit somebody in their legs, in their dick. It's probably not going to knock them out of the air. You probably won't take any damage. And then you just get smashed with double greatswords. That's why I hate Raptor of the Mist. I hate jump attacks as a whole. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of people actually agree with that sentiment. I say this a lot. Some people agree, but I don't know if I'm just crazy, but I fucking hate jump attacks. They're so safe. They're so safe, dude. I hate that.
I mean, you have specific counters for those, no? I mean, any Knight's Greatsword, the R1 will knock somebody out of the air, or what was it, like pick up R2 or something like that.
You're right. There are weapons that can consistently counter a jump attack pretty well, but I feel like there's not a lot. I feel like there's less vertical attacks than there used to be. And, you can always just use a halberd R1 or R2. You know what I'm trying to say. The second R1.
No.
What'd you say?
No, yeah, I agree.
There's halberds, which can do that. The first R1, not the second, I bet. And certain great swords. But yeah, that's about it. I like Carrion Grandeur because it smacks them right out of the air for 2,000 damage, but it's telegraphed. So it's got to be a dumb ganker for you to get them with Grandeur. Most people are just going to spam their jump attack repeatedly in a gank. There'll be 2 or 3 dudes behind you like a pack of fucking hyenas just jumping and smashing it. And they're eventually going to get you because there's phantom range on jump attacks. And you can't just turn around and turn and burn because you're going to swing right through their legs with like 80% of the weapons in the game. Yeah, that's why I think jump attacks are cancer. You just generally
think that with vertical accountability, like even stairs are a death sentence for some weapons, and they really shouldn't be. My characters shouldn't struggle with aiming downwards, but they genuinely do. And I feel like if the vertical tracking was increased, that jump attacks would be far less of an issue.
I agree. I do agree with that. And another thing I've noticed is there is a lot of diagonalism in the game. And I know that sounds kind of stupid, but it seems like this might just be my perception. But in previous games, the horizontal swings were more like horizontal. They were back and forth, kind of sort of level-ish with the ground, right? But now they've made a lot of the horizontal swings kind of diagonal. So it's a lot easier to just swing right over somebody's head. The most egregious example of that is the Scythes. I can't fucking stand Scythes. They just go right over people's heads. I don't know if I'm just bad with them or like... When
they
I don't
do
like
seem to be a massive free aiming weapon. Every time I've seen someone main a Scythe and be good with it, half of what they're doing is free aiming.
Yes. And I don't like weapons that I don't like enjoy. I'm just generally not very good with them. And I don't really enjoy Scythes, so I just never put the time in to figure out how to be good with them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I remember I did a video maybe 6 months ago about the Gigasticus combo, on the I think it was the Grave Scythe, where if you landed the fully charged heavy, it comboed into Loretta's Slash, and you got like 2 billion damage.
I remember
And that was
one.
Yeah, that was a good video.
There are a lot of cool sort of true combos in this game, but I feel like a big tragedy is that half of them are just not as effective as simply spamming L2. You're not really rewarded for that kind of creativity, apart from some very special, distinct cases, like the Tree Spears jumping R1 into the R1? Is that the true combo with the Tree Spear? I can't quite remember.
I'm not a super big Great Spear guy, so I actually don't know.
Not Tree Spear, Tree Guardian Spear, whatever it's called.
That one does do that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You know my hatred for poking weapons. I don't use them that much. Actually, the Guardian Tree Spear does like these vertical sweeps, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's technically a halberd, but you'd never know just by looking at it. It's really nice, but for some reason the swings start from the bottom, so they're really good if you've got a height advantage on your opponent, and they're absolutely terrible if you've got a height disadvantage on your opponent, because half the time you're starting your attack by just poking the stairs beneath them.
Yeah, I'm looking at people playing with the Guardian Tree Spear. I'm like, man, that looks kind of cool. It's kind of stylish, but it looks like it fucking sucks. So I never actually
much
tried
better
it.
than you'd expect. I will say it's very, very good, but it is very asymmetrically good in that if it's in the wrong situation, it sucks.
Yeah, and I also noticed with the Guardian Spear that the attacks are again really narrow. And you know how I feel about narrow attacks. I hate that shit. I like a wide sweep. You know, that's why I was addicted to curved great swords and dual straight swords for so long, because they had these sweeps that you could hit 2 or 3 dudes. Crowd control power is what I'm saying. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, crowd control isn't always the best, though. Like, I always have a bunch of narrow attacked weapons for if I happen to have a co-invader, for example, because then we can sort of get elbow to elbow and attack the host without fear of hitting each other.
See, you're right about that. That is an issue. I run dismounter, Omen Cleaver constantly, and I get a co-invader. 1 in 10 invasions, I get a co-invader. And if they're good and I can trust them to roll catch the host when we're on the host, after you kill the Phantom, you both go kill the host, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much the process.
The reverse gank begins.
Yes. And if they're good and I can trust them to actually get the host while I stay on the side, then that's okay. I'll kind of run beside the host and kind of watch. So if the invader that I'm with hits the host, I'll try to go in and space a running R1, so I just hit the host, but not the invader. Because you can kind of do that. But
I call that the sheepdog position, where you're essentially running crowd control and shepherding the host into the point where they're the most vulnerable. You're trying to keep them away from certain doors or open areas and such like that. Your responsibility is far more sort of spacing-based and zoning-based.
Yeah, exactly. And in that situation, if I have the big dumb weapon, I'll let the other invader roll catch the host. I'll let the other invader ride his ass, and I'll stay on the side to make sure everything stays under control, But if it's a dumb invader, I will carelessly swing my big dumb weapon and kill this invader if they're trying to get in my ass while we're chasing the host. Because if it's a bad invader, I'm not going to let him do the work on the host, because he's probably going to die, or he's never going to get him, because a lot of these dudes don't even know how to roll catch,
A lot of them are literally new invaders. A lot of the old invaders are still not very excited about Elden Ring, so most of the invaders that you meet are people who are still learning, because Elden Ring's the first game they've invaded in. So a lot of them are sort of rediscovering the old tactics that all of us already know. But, this is a bad thing. That attack always scares me.
Oh, I must mention the Poise. I am a huge proponent of passive Poise. I hate not having passive Poise. Active Poise is I know you guys are newer and you guys don't appreciate the joy of passive Poise. But
I'm actually on the fence
it.
about Poise. You'll notice that most of my builds have a very solid amount of Poise, just because it does give you the proper feeling that if you're poked by something the size of a pencil, you probably shouldn't have a whole body stagger from it, right?
Yes.
But the problem is that it's tied to armor, and I firmly believe that Poise should be actually tied to a stat.
Fuck, I don't know about that one, man.
That's a pretty hot take of my own. I'm no game designer. That might be horribly wrong. But the problem with it tied to armor, or at least the way it is now, is that there are so few armors that do the right thing, and it's basically a necessity to have that max level of poise to play the game properly.
You know, if you had played the older games, you would understand that Poise in Elden Ring is like barely noticeable compared to the older games.
The hyper armor system, I think, is like really, really good. I feel like if the hyper armor was tuned up and the damage curve was better, that the passive poise system would be perfectly fine. I reckon a lot of people who don't like the passive poise system have that as a matter of taste, and I think that's fine. Like, there are game mechanics you can like and not like for personal reasons, but I don't believe that it's inherently unbalanced, I guess.
Yeah, it's not. The schism kind of started when the old players like me started mixing with the new players that never experienced passive poise, and they kind of don't like it because that's just not what they came up with. You know, they don't.
It's different, so it's bad.
Yes, and that's the same way the old heads feel about a lot of the new shit. You know, it's kind of a stupid fuck you match that they're fighting with each other, and it's never gonna end. It's kind of like the war between invaders and fucking overleveled phantoms. It's never gonna end
until
but I will
the
tell
war
you,
is rendered impossible. Yeah.
Yes. The biggest reason I didn't like Dark Souls 3 was the lack of passive poise. Now, active poise is okay. I like that when you're swinging some giant fucking sword, you can't really get staggered that easily, especially if you armor up. I like that, and that should be a thing, but passive poise is almost a necessity for invaders because in an invasion, there's just so much shit being thrown. And in Dark Souls 3, a fucking fart from a squirrel 2 blocks away could stagger you. Everything staggered you, and it would just fuck up everything so often. I hate it. I despised getting staggered by so much shit. And I don't know if other people feel that way.
I think people do. I think even in Dark Souls 3, even the proponents of like the active poise only system were very outspoken about the longsword and like the murky and such like that, because that was sort of the weakness in the active poise system, is that you either let your small weapons have basically no poise damage, or you break the system from the bottom up.
Yes, and the fast weapon meta was cancer. DS3 had a fast weapon meta. That's where the whole murky hand scythe came from. That's why that was such a cancer, pretty much, right? I mean,
we still kind of have that in, like, Clean Rot is just murky 2.0, really.
I sort of agree with that. Actually, I think Clean Rot's better. It's easier to space with it. It's longer.
That's true. I actually think Clean Rot is easier to use, so it's simultaneously better and worse. It's not as... I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to say that Murky required great skill, but there was a right and a wrong way to use it, and if you used it the wrong way, you got bodied, right?
Oh, that's pretty much true with almost anything. Almost.
But with the Clean Rot, that is such a basic set of instructions that as long as you're not, like, literally monkey mashing the thing, like I was earlier, like, it's a mindless weapon to win with.
True. But you know what Poise can save you from? Clean Rot spam.
There was that weird point where it couldn't, and that did feel like the murky cometh again, but...
Hear me out. Since we've been talking about this, I just thought of a good way to balance hammers and axes. So, a straight sword is a fast weapon that does good damage, while dual straight swords do good damage. But they don't do a lot of poise damage, and they don't have active hyper armor. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, what if you gave hammers a bunch of hyper armor? You left the moveset kind of shitty, but you gave them hyper armor, and you made them do a lot of damage to armored foes, and a lot of poise damage. Like a substantial amount to make them worth it. You know what I mean? Do you think that would be a good way to fix hammers? And axes should probably be somewhere in the middle between a sword and a hammer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think the poise damage curve is pretty wonky with a lot of weapons, because it shouldn't be tied mostly to the damage that they do. It should be tied to the moveset. The less forward momentum a weapon has, the more poise damage it should do in general terms, right?
Agree, because they're not designed for aggression if they don't have the forward momentum.
No.
And I think that would probably incentivize people to use hammers, or to at least keep one if they run into someone, say, in full bulgo. Because there's absolutely no set of armor in the world that is going to protect you from a big old fucking hammer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
one thing I
that's
was
what they
always
were-
curious about was like in PvE, if you like stagger, or like if you hit an boss enough, you get like this stagger animation. And I always wonder why they don't have that for PvP as well. So let's say if you use a hammer and then you get a certain amount of hits in, that you get this stagger animation that you can then use to repost somebody. But that will probably like be a dream for ganker.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that too. Like how they have the posture breaks in Sekiro. You know, it's kind of similar
Yeah,
to
that was a good system.
But I feel like that doesn't belong in PvP because it would, I don't know, I just don't see it feeling right. You know what I mean?
I feel like it would be a kind of poor substitute for the crit system that we currently have, but you could make a good argument for it happening in a kind of, I guess, like a equip load kind of sense. Like the lighter you are, the... Sorry, that was very funny. The lighter equip load you have, like the shorter your poise breaks or something like that. I don't know exactly how it would work, but I'm not sure that the system would sit well with the rest of the mechanics.
I don't think that if you broke somebody's poise, they should fall to their knees and you should get a critical. I don't think that would work well in PvP.
No, I'm talking about a different meter.
Oh, do you guys know how poise break worked in Dark Souls 2?
I never
Nope.
properly managed it, no.
It was kind of sort of similar to Dark Souls 1 poise. It was similar in concept, but if you got your poise broken, you would kind of enter this weird stagger animation, and it would cause you to be able to get hit several times because someone broke your poise. So it was kind of a reward for breaking somebody's poise. That's the best way I can explain it. But I actually kind of sort of like that, because it really paid off when you crack somebody's poise. You know what I mean?
I'll say that if there's... Like, because currently poise is its own just standard bar. If there's a mechanic tied to breaking someone else's poise that's a massive reward, there should be a way to maintain your own poise. Like, Sekiro had Ichimonji and a variety of other things that you could do to regen poise as you play, essentially.
I think the way you should regen your poise is by being passive, by backing off and not getting hit, because that's kind of how it's historically always worked. Your poise meter was kind of always the meter that went back to normal if you didn't get hit for a little while, and I think that's fine. You know what I mean? But it's weird in Elden Ring because if you get your poise broken, it automatically resets back to the top. Have you guys noticed that?
Yeah.
I don't really like that. That's what makes it feel weird.
I think, honestly, that it takes far too long for poise to regen in Elden Ring. So, a lot of the time, your absolute poise value isn't really that relevant because it will just be... Jesus. A lot of the time, your absolute poise value isn't really relevant because you've been smacked with a knife or something like that. I'm barely paying attention to the implications, I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not playing anything. I'm just sitting here talking about schizophrenic PvP rants. You know what I mean?